Hello and welcome back. I'm going to switch to English because it's my pleasure to welcome Alex from Comrade. Alex is an e-commerce geek, as your YouTube channel unveils, and he also
Yeah, a little bit.
is an Adobe Commerce rock star. I had the pleasure to see him on stage presenting something, I think, with App Builder.
You think so? Okay, good. Okay, you're well prepared. Awesome. I'm
And
joking.
I also watched some of his latest videos. I think you just at the beginning of this week, you released another episode on e-commerce cheek about New Relic, I think, and API Mesh. And I'm really excited what you have to tell and share us because you are a trailblazer to this new universe of software development. Yeah, please share what you have prepared for us today. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bjorn. I hope you guys not having fun there, because if you're having fun there, I will be very jealous. Now I'm just a little bit jealous. So I want to talk a bit about the future stack of Adobe Commerce. And as I watch also the first presentation we had today from Adobe perspective, I'll talk a little bit about from development perspective, which maybe it's similar, maybe not so. So let's have a look. But yeah, so what I want to basically tell about extensibility again, as Bjorn, you said, I'm doing it for a long time already. And also give some feedback and tell where Adobe or where all this stuff is going to. But yeah, I mean, thanks a lot for introducing me. If you missed it, basically, if you do not watch all my videos on YouTube, you can just watch this particular presentation and it will cover quite a lot of it, I guess. Let's start with some introduction. So it's Magento Adobe Commerce Extensibility. And we all grew up, I mean, last 15, 17, 18 years with single monolith or with a single application we all love to work with. And if a new task is coming, what are we usually doing? We usually creating the module for this. And the module is coming inside of the monolith application. And we more or less growing up our experience, growing up amount of modules, making from the small projects, small monsters and then big monsters. But that's alive, I would say. And we all got used to it. And I mean, we have more or less 15 years of monolith application evolution. And if I would be there, I would honestly ask you questions. For example, do you know how many modules been in core when the new Magento 2 version appeared? You first may just have a guess in your head, and I will give you an answer. So there was 82 core modules in Magento 2.0.0, which is not so many. I mean, if you will have a look on the current version, which is 301, which I counted including MSI, so inventory module, which is already quite a lot. And it's happened within last, not 15, I guess it's 11 years since 2.0.0 till now. And yeah, this amount of modules is growing. I mean, it's still growing, even if Adobe going to SaaS direction. There's still on-premise solution, there's still cloud, and amount of modules is literally still growing. Also, what making our life much easier still in our current life cycle or development cycle is Commerce Marketplace. And now you can guess amount of modules in Commerce Marketplace, and it's approximately 4,000, I mean, close to 4,000. And I mean, if you go to GitHub, you may find much more modules which are not listed. And if you go especially to our most lovely providers which are there, there are even more modules because they're just not listing them on Marketplace. They're not really maintaining them, which is quite pity, but yeah, that's life. How can you maintain 300 modules with Marketplace? And then I went through, let's say, our average project. Now, average project has approximately plus minus. I mean, it can be 10, can be 100 custom extensions per project, which mean every time we started a new project, we downloading something, we building something, we extending the core, because I guess in my history, maybe only 1 or 2 projects ended up with a standard setup, or mostly standard setup, like where it was only 1, 2 customizations, the small ones. That was only because the customer used only them as a catalogs. And what's even more, in compared to all of this, I mean, Adobe Commerce developed, Magento developed, too many modules appeared. There's still one template available since all this time. Base plus Luma is a standard frontend, which became deprecated and the moment it's been released with this HTML construct. Yeah, when you just write in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Knockout.js, don't want to say this word. Yeah, and it's basically what do we have before as a setup, and then Adobe Commerce new extensibility model popped up. It's popped up some time ago, and we will have this quiz still. But if you start to compare from what we've got with Magento or with then Adobe Commerce and what we have with Adobe Commerce currently with the current extensibility model, we have 11 modules on Adobe Exchange. So you see that the difference are quite massive, and only, by the way, 9 of those modules are for Adobe Commerce. So it's a builder modules, you can guess, to another ones are for another Adobe services. And as I heard today, before this presentation, there are 9 others are in review. So we can count on approximately 18 Adobe Commerce modules that may appear in the future on a marketplace, which is still not comparable. It's not comparable from what we had. And for sure, that's causing a lot of doubts when you're starting to think about, shall I switch to new extensibility model? But what is huge impact doing for Adobe Commerce, and especially as Adobe Commerce is a SaaS, it's Edge Delivery Service as single frontend or one and only frontend Adobe will push you for if you want to have not Luma frontend. So we will talk today a little bit about Edge Delivery Services also. I honestly will try to not overlap with presentation that was the first one, but it will be quite hard. And what we will start today, for sure, Adobe Builder, you all can guess, one of the favorite topics for me. We start with a small history, and again, if you know when the Adobe Builder been released, I mean, honestly, you can unmute and drop me some numbers. I'm really curious if anybody, first of all, listening, if anybody there, and everybody has an idea.
I would say 3 years ago, around 2022.
You close. 2020.
2020 already?
2020, it was Adobe Firefly. I found my own article I wrote on 2021 about Adobe Firefly on Magento Association blog. I mean, it's still there, by the way. And it was already like developed. So it's initially appeared 2020, approximately was named Adobe Firefly. I mean, now you know this under another name. I guess nobody allowed to tell Adobe Firefly anymore for a builder, but I mean, we're talking about history. And then a builder appeared 2022. So basically a builder naming appeared 2022. So I guess that's maybe why you, yes, you are correct for a builder. That's true. Not for technology, but for naming. Yeah, and I also found out some days ago that on API Mesh, Adobe worked already on 2019, which was for me very big opening because it was released, I guess, 2024. So yeah, there are a lot of background stories which we maybe will hear somewhere in the future. But yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was just renaming, but technology stayed the same. And again, if you read, let's say, my articles from 2021, you will see that not so many changed from the steps I described there, and if you compare them to now. What does it basically mean? That means that the solution was there for already 5 years, and we still have 9 modules for Adobe Commerce on Marketplace. So it's not really used on production still. And yeah, 2024 as for me was a big boom of a builder because there was, I mean, we participated in training, so Adobe made a lot of around there that appeared the team, which became more or less public. So the Slack activated again, the team started to talk to people, there are a lot of releases come up, starter kits and so on. We will talk about this. By the way, just a reminder, 2023, I already talked about a builder in your office. Last time it was on site. Yeah, so if you want, you can, I guess, find on Phoenix Media YouTube. I guess it's still there. So yeah, I mean, shortly about a builder, I especially put the slide because maybe somebody will watch or watching who not know a lot of about it. So just imagine it's another way of extend Adobe Commerce. The Adobe try to provide possibilities of extending the core by having the same tool set the developers are used to. File storage, key value storage, so some kind of persistent storage, which is not really persistent for long term, but it's something you can use for persist the data. You have the front end as React Spectrum, you have events, which are similar to, let's say, plugins, events, and observers within Commerce. You have scheduled tasks as cron jobs, API mesh as a way to extend GraphQL or API layer. I mean, not only GraphQL. And you have admin UI SDK, so your customer don't need to look where you put the service and just can find them within Adobe Commerce backend. And yeah, starter kits for easy the development. By the way, the starter kit, that's something I would say missed in standard Adobe Commerce Magento way. Yes, we have PHP Storm plugin, we have some services to start the module development much faster, but I would say there were nothing so centralized and structured as starter kits right now, which is, I guess, quite well organized. We have API mesh. So as I said, that's a way of extending the APIs. And if you're more precise, extending the GraphQL Magento API, or sorry, Adobe Commerce API. Now we switch to Adobe Commerce World, even if we have here X Magento cache ID. Yeah, so merge different APIs together. We can modify the data. We can use transformations, rename data, and so on. So I would tell it's not only about extending, it's also about modify data. And I mean, if you think about old approach, when you need to change, let's assume GraphQL schema or provide the new data, you write in the monolith extension. With Mesh, you can also do it, but you don't need to develop anything. So you relatively just create the JSON configuration, deploy it, and it's doing it for you. I mean, you still would need to develop the resolvers if you want to, but that's another story. We can make another presentation on this topic. So now the most interesting part for me, and maybe for you also, it's extension or builder module. So you can imagine that if you have a new task and you think, okay, what shall I start from? And I'm asking like a lot of people, how you make a decision, why you're not starting with a builder, let's do something there. I mean, that's the good stuff. It's there for 5 years. Okay, I mean, talking about stability, maybe for 2 years. But start to use it. And I hear a lot of answers, which I try to summarize. One of them is create module or core module is just easier. It depends. It really depends of the business logic. It also depends on a way how you need to reach the core. I mean, what you really want to do, which logic you want to build around. With a builder, it's a bit easier. You basically working with API level, which is structure, which is not changing a lot. I mean, basically, it's not changing at all, I would say, because even I mean, I saw a lot of endpoints within APIs which mark as deprecated, but they stayed there for already several years. So there are no like official deprecation mechanism, it just stays there. So I would say in my experience, it's in the most cases where you decide for a builder, it's faster and easier than develop the core application. Again, it's my opinion. Yeah, I mean, you better create your own and just share what I think about based on my experience. Another one, it's more expensive. No, it's also not. I mean, again, if you're talking about easier, then it cannot be more expensive. But the reason, basically, it's easier to build. Also, the way you build in it. I mean, you, in this case, just write in JavaScript code. It's much easier to maintain it. I mean, and it's more expensive. Statement for me always sounds a bit strange if you compare those two technologies, by the reason that maybe even at this point of time when you're trying to create a new model, you will maybe spend a bit more time to build it, by the reason it's not so new for you. I mean, you need to learn something, you have some trial and errors, which maybe the learning path is longer. But then if you think about extensibility, about maintainability in the future, it's totally different story. I mean, in the last years, I really see that the update tide for Adobe Commerce is growing version to version, even if Adobe is not really creating something new. I mean, there are no new features anymore within a lot of last versions. They're mostly like security updates, some fixes. Okay, there was big B2B release, But basically, there are not so many changes, and I don't understand also myself why the upgrade time takes much more time from like release to release. I would more assume it's happening from the situation, as I said before, that we build in from nice product, the small monsters and then the big monsters, because from time the monolith also grow in itself. Then I heard a lot, I don't know how it works, but then I remind you, I heard the same when Magento 2 released. I mean, when Magento 2 released, I was pure Magento 1 developer, and when I saw on those patterns the way it's built, I was a bit confused, thinking, do I need to learn this again? Why it's so different? Why it's so complicated and so on? And now I don't think so anymore. And I guess that's a native, like human reaction against everything new, where you need to learn, because in most cases, learn something you already like. So you already know how Magento 1 works. I mean, let's come back to the history. And now you need to learn Magento 2. Like, why do I need to do it? It's already a nice working commerce system. Here is very similar. You're already very familiar with Magento 2, and now you need to learn to a builder. Like, come on, again. So you're learning something new for doing the same stuff. So that psychology can be hard, but if you'll start to work with it after months, you will become quite fluent with it, I would say. Then I hear a lot, I mean, yeah, let's try to do something small. I try something small. I mean, I don't want to risk a lot. I would say, yes, don't try, just do it. My only recommendation is, please, if you can, do it on live projects, because you will gather much more experience, believe me, if you'll do it on live project, in compare if you will do it on existing project, or sorry, not on existing, on test project. So just for learn purpose and for try something. Because development is not only about create piece of the JavaScript snippet in the whole development cycle, where you're starting with a task, starting with a planning, development, you're doing QA, you're writing tests, you're releasing it. That's all experience you need to gather. And in the whole this development cycle, the writing of the code is even not maybe the biggest part of everything. And then we come into migration. And under the migration, I don't need code migration, let's say from Magento or from Adobe Commerce PHP extension to a builder. I really mean the mindset migration. So it's migration of the team mindset, and especially the tech stack, for sure, because it's another technology. And if you got used to create PHP modules all your life, you may struggle at the first. But lucky to us, there was Luma for 11 years. And a lot of developers stuck with knockout debugging, they stuck with jQuery, they stuck with, so with everything related to frontend, there was a bunch of the JavaScript. And if you're talking about a builder, we're still on a JavaScript world. Yes, it's a node, but on a low level, it's all clear how to write it. The patterns of the development is quite similar to the PHP. And yeah, so that's more or less not so complicated as it looks like. Then yes, you need to switch the mindset a bit of the team, that they understand and realize that that's a new way of extending and that's a new way of working. I mean, I could even make it easier for you. Imagine you have Adobe Commerce SaaS project. You have no chance there. So it would be much better if you prepared and not just staying in front of the new shiny Adobe Commerce SaaS platform and don't know how to start. So how to start? There are a lot of starter kits being released. That's something that's really make like development life easier, my life easier. And the first one being integration starter kit, and what I really like in, let's say, Adobe approach to it, they invited partners to training and to try it together. I mean, maybe I was so lucky, but it's really helped to understand the way of it working. So what's the integration starter kit doing? It's basically the set of libraries and the scripts which allow you to create integration between Adobe Commerce and third-party system. It can be ERP system, can be CRM, can be OMS, can be anything else. And it's already support bidirectional synchronization of different entities. So products, customer order, stock, I guess that's what is out of the box there. I guess there was also customer groups. And for sure, it's not doing everything for you. So if you receive a new ERP system where you need to send the orders to, you need to write some piece of code to map Adobe Commerce to ERP system APIs. But all this coverage around is already available for you. So you just more or less open in the transformation.js file and doing the transformation, or you're doing pre-processing or post-processing. So all those methods are already there. And if you really want to start with something like that, that's, by the way, the great use case to start learn a builder if you haven't yet, because it's easy, it's very well documented, and it's really open you like visibility of a lot of services which are around Adobe Builder are already available, like events, so I/O events, for example, the webhooks usage, key value storage usage, and all this stuff. There's already some even sample actions available for commerce to back office to commerce integration. Several weeks ago, OpenTelemetry were released for supporting the tracing metrics and logins. So, for example, if you don't have New Relic, or even if you have a New Relic, you now can just forward all information about processing your code into the New Relic or OpenTelemetry, and then you will see the whole traces, what's calling after what, see all metrics of on execution, the code, and to see all logs. And that's also very useful for monitoring in the future. So if you release your model to production, then there's built-in scripts for onboarding, configuration, and deployment. So you can compare it to install scripts of Adobe Commerce, because let's say if you are on pure a builder, you have APIs, but you don't have any scripts. So you need to develop it. This integration starter kit already has it available. And then authorization that was a release of second version integration starter kit, because Adobe Commerce SaaS authorized REST API differently. We all know about way of authorization, Adobe Commerce, on-premise, cloud, even Magento. Don't use the Bureau tokens, I remind you. But there is OAuth 1 for standard, but there is EMS authorization for SaaS solution. So it's working differently, fully different way. And the integration starter kit has a library you can just use, and it's easily separate way of authorization, and you need to worry about this one. Then basically makes your model compatible. And another one was the checkout starter kit, and I heard some discussions after the first presentation in relation to EDS extending the checkout experience. So the checkout starter kit is for extending your checkout experience. So it's the easy way to build, to add and build new PSP integrations, new shipments, and new taxes. I had this question for myself always when I work with a builder, that it can cover quite a lot of use cases, but it could not cover the use cases when I need to add a new payment method, because to add a new payment method to core, you need to create PHP module, you need to register it with XML, you need to deploy it, and then payment method appeared in configuration section, you can enable it, and then it will be available for you via the APIs. The checkout starter kit can do all of this, not alone for sure. Adobe also released the small package for SaaS, which provides APIs so you can register payment method, shipment, tax, and eventing from outside. So you don't need to create PHP extensions anymore. And checkout starter kit have pre-configured scripts for provisioning all the stuff. So again, makes your life easier if you want to start the integration. And then last one, it's API Mesh starter kit. It's basically just a easy way of start with API Mesh. If you're talking about honest feedback, I didn't find it very useful for myself, because I mean, to start working with API Mesh, you need 2-3 minutes. So I don't really see why I do need the starter kit for that, but I also know Adobe working on different API Mesh templates. And if they would be part of the starter kits, that will make life easier. So that's maybe just the first step. One feedback related to those 3 starter kits. That's maybe feedback even not for somebody who's listening, it's more for Adobe. Please unify your development, because they're all developed by different teams and the way they build are different. That's not making life easier. Like like I mentioned, authorization, like OAuth and EMS is built differently. So there are different libraries, and you're like, oh, which library shall I use? So please try to unify it. But that's again, if somebody from Adobe dev team listening, that's some maybe good action point. So what's next? I mean, a builder is developing as I said, it was a big boom 2024, and further steps been announced in May 2025. So enhanced database storage, finally some database storage which we can use in more persistent way, so which allow to save more complicated data, which basically increasing the way of development. So we have much more flexibility into use cases we want to build. Text starter kit, it's already there, part of the checkout starter kit already can be used. So we can already create a new texts. App installation in progress. I saw already more or less prototyping or templates of this one. Multi-app management, the same. I mean, you already can have multiple events within your Adobe Commerce system, or basically already can have multiple events providers, which are in Adobe, a builder world provider of events. And observability already there, that's an open telemetry I talked about. So honest feedback at this point of what everything I just said about a builder was true. I hope. It's really developing fast, and now I definitely believe it's a good time to jump in by the same reason, and also by the reason that support team of a builder developers and starter kit developers are available to assist you. And I believe and I think it will not be the same in the future. I mean, now it's quite fresh. There are a lot of coming in, but also there are no thousands and thousands of developers which are working with it. So the demand will grow because SaaS will pop up, amount of requests will grow. So I can believe that the team will be overwhelmed with all those requests, and you will start to get your answers much slower. So please then use it now, because now you can get fast answer and move forward much faster. Then your feedback is really matters. So if you're providing the feedback about what I'm using, if you see some bugs, so go to Slack, ask the question, write your issues. And if you really have some feedbacks in relation even to new features, it can be heard by Adobe team. It can be implemented if it makes sense. So that's something I faced personally. What is still missing, at least for me? I mean, first of all, marketplace availability, that's what I just said before. By the reason there are not so many modules I can reference to, I can see how they work, so I can even install in my environment. But what is even more missing for me is the high-scale project integrations. I don't know yet any builder which is running on big project with thousands and thousands of orders and millions of SKUs. So that's something I would really want to see myself. I mean, I work in a lot with a builder, but maybe I'm not so lucky, and my projects are more or less small ones. Yeah, that's about a builder. And then very shortly we'll jump to Commerce SaaS, which I would not say a shock for Magento developers, because you cannot develop core anymore. But yes, so I call it bye-bye Magento, because there are no Magento anymore in sense we all know it. So we cannot more or less develop anything with PHP for the SaaS solution. But yeah, hello Adobe Commerce SaaS, new platform nobody has experience to work with. I mean, I myself has now one project I'm working on of migrating. So maybe when I will have much more experience, I will definitely create some videos on this topic. But what I try to combine already based on my experience is some comparison of those of two. So by the hosting model, SaaS is fully Adobe. You cannot do anything there. You cannot change the code. It's hosted by Adobe, in compared to all previous solutions where you can host it anywhere or use cloud and has an access to it. Because by customization flexibility, the same. So SaaS is pure Adobe solution, means you have only APIs and a builder, when before you had full flexibility and you can do whatever you want. Even if you're talking about Adobe Commerce Cloud, you can change the core with Git pages, for example. Then you have extension support is only out of process. Again, switching to a builder where the Adobe Commerce Pass is supporting both. So you still can do a builder, but you still can have standard PHP extensions. The same for the checkout functionality. The builder integration is required for SaaS, but optional for all solutions. So, but optional don't mean I will never use it. As I said before, please do it. Performance scale, like fully auto scale by Adobe, you don't need to worry about anything. For PaaS depends on infrastructure. You have pipelines managed by Adobe, means also updates managed by Adobe. So you do not see when the system been updated, but you will be warned. At least I hope so. I didn't have an experience with this one. You have identity management login system, so you don't have the standard Adobe Commerce login anymore for SaaS. You have webhook support, native one, again, through the whole Adobe Runtime integration. So again, everything we will talk about is fully, for SaaS, it's fully a Builder cloud solution, where for PaaS, for example, you still can use the webhooks. This module is there, but you have to do it yourself to configure XML files and push the code to make them work. And for SaaS, it's available via the APIs. The same for Eventing, and GraphQL endpoints hosted now differently. So before it was self-hosted, to have your domain/GraphQL, it was part of the monolith. Now it's hosted by Adobe and provide your own URL for API availability. And then all security stuff also like managed by Adobe. That's, by the way, a SaaS Adobe Commerce backend. If you haven't seen it yet, spot the difference. I mean, it's the same system. The difference is that you don't have a version anymore, so you don't know which version you're running on. Everything which is related to content, and again, what been discussed after the first presentation, the whole stuff which page builder is cut off. You don't have CMS pages, you don't have blogs, it's everything out. You also don't have the system configs. So what was a pity for me is the Fastly configuration, because was really powerful module. And if you have a Fastly, you can control huge amount of stuff with it. Now you don't have it anymore. I mean, I can believe it's causing from the situation that there are Edge delivery services, which has also own CDN, it's everything configured there. So you don't have native frontend anymore to configure. So, and last but not least, Edge delivery services, which also been talked today a little bit before, like that's a new frontend. I mean, if I am as past pure backend developer before I switched to solution consultant to architecture, for me, just like another frontend. I mean, Luma, Edge delivery services. I mean, yes, for sure, it's different technology. So it's a new shiny front end, which like has a lot of key points provided by Adobe here also. So I'm more quoting Adobe here. Fully headless solution means you can inject any backend system as you want to, if even not necessary Adobe Commerce. You have end content and commerce experience. You have edge rendered product landing pages. What does it mean? That means that they've been preloaded, precompiled, and loaded onto the CDN. So when you open the website, the content been loaded from CDN, so from closest server to you, which makes all this Google scores performance on top, because everything is already compiled and delivered to you. Faster checkout entry pages, so the checkout really much faster with EDS. So it's quite nicely built with all those components and drop-ins. If you want to know more about EDS or Edge delivery services, I need to reference you to documentation, because it's another, I guess, presentation for several hours. API cache, you have API caching and prefetching, and fast time to launch. I marked it as a red because it's a statement on the Edge delivery services main page of Adobe, which at this moment, I strongly disagree. I mean, for sure, if you're talking about the boilerplate, so native template, you need maybe 5-10 minutes to roll it out. That's true. Really fast time to launch the boilerplate. If you're talking about the real project where the customer has known requirements, I mean, we're working now on a project where we need to implement custom SSO, for example. We need to build some logic on a shopping cart. We need to extend a bit the checkout to have some additional fields where customer can enter the data. This learning curve is huge for us. It's requiring a lot of time. During our development, we're doing it for a bit more than half a year. The EDS been changed so oftenly that we cannot reach this pace. So we need to stay with version we started to use. And then I guess 1 or 2 times we try to update. It's taken really a lot of time. So I believe it will be much faster. At this moment, sorry, but in my experience, I don't see it. It's still the development time require a lot of effort. That's approximate architecture, how it works. I don't know if you see my mouse, I hope so. So we have a delivery service as this layer where the whole content been stored and precompiled. We have commerce pages and content source, so basically data delivered to you. We have still Adobe Commerce on the backend with catalog service and live search. That's everything which is loaded by EDS directly, so it's not calling to Magento for main, for search, PLP pages. It's using direct calls to the services, which makes everything much, much faster. Then from development perspective, we have this drop-ins area where the drop-ins is, let's say, set. It's some piece of functionality with front-end elements you can just put somewhere and it works. Idea of it is just that you have composable commerce, so you just create components on a page and it more or less works. In reality, again, extensibility is not so easy as it would be, but it's again some learning curve that we need all to go through. We have also blocks that's it's similar to drop-in, but it's something you develop yourself for your custom functionality. That's how this part is built. I have one example just to make it a bit more clear. Yeah, that's what I just thought about. We have a drop-ins components, and then we have also a way of extending them because Adobe provide them like it is. You can just take and use it. You can extend it with some predent, append child, so add some elements before, after. You have those slots within the drop-in. It's like part where you can customize, delete, inject something. So there are a lot of customization possibilities, but when we hit the customer reality, not always match. And what I wanted to show, that's authoring tool from Adobe, how to manage your front end. So you have everything as pages here. And for every functionality, like checkout, shopping cart, customer, you create in the pages, and then they look like following. That's an index page. So imagine you are in a Word document where was before this tool appeared, and you're doing such a content. And then when you deploy it, you see the result you deployed. So that's how it looks on the document. That's how it looks on production. And there's another example that's a bit more closer to the developer. That's a sign-up page, the standard component. And that's how it looks when you edit this page. You have this block here, which is basically reference to the code, piece of the code which render all this component. So that's all predefined. You need to know it, unfortunately. So to build it like this, and the code looks approximately like that. So you have drop-ins which you just inject, and then you do decoration where you can extend it, can add some another elements if you want to, but it's standard. It's only managing here the redirects. Yes, and there is a Luma bridge, by the way. Yeah, keep your Luma alive. So you still can have possibility to run EDS with Luma. Luma bridge is more CDN configuration in most part, because you just serve two backends from the single domain, and then piece of the code which you put into the Adobe Commerce system, which can talk to EDS. The main challenge of the have it to system alive is the cross cookie management, because when you add in something to the shopping cart on EDS, it's creating cookie, and then Magento or Adobe Commerce don't understand it because it's fully another format, has nothing to do with it. So the Luma bridge is the code which allow you to make them talk to each other. So it's not very complicated one. And if you go to official page of the Luma bridge on Adobe documentation, there is written that there is a beta of Luma bridge Adobe is currently working on, because before it was only available by partners. Yeah, and all really much more to go and talk about. I still will reference to my YouTube channel where you can find some answers on the question. If you cannot, you can go to Adobe Commerce official documentation. And as I said, reach people in Slack. There are a lot of channels for Mesh, for a builder, for storefronts, services, for live search. That's the main I use. Thanks a lot, and hope we have some time for Q&A.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for sharing your experience with this really new technology, and I really appreciate that you have your YouTube channel and you're sharing so much knowledge there. That makes it really a very unique space. So I'm opening up for Q&A, and we already have a colleague here in the room, Johannes. Please.
Yes. Hey, Alex.
Hey,
presentation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, quite well.
Okay, perfect. I think one of the most interesting parts in your presentation was the word migration, where you said it's about the migration of the mindset and the tech stack. So, it seems that you digged already into the whole topic, and I would like to hear your personal opinion on it. Do you think it's people don't want to migrate, or developers and agencies don't want to migrate because leaving the comfort zone, or especially developers digging their own grave because they're PHP developers and they don't want, or it's not necessary anymore? What is your personal opinion on that?
Very good question. And I would say yes. I mean, the biggest problem, what I see now is the mindset of the people who are afraid. I mean, let's be honest, afraid to lose their jobs, maybe, because like they imagine the whole life they develop PHP code. Now they come in the architect and tell them, okay, we built an everything with a builder. For them, it's a shock, first of all, because I mean, also was a shock the SaaS release for a lot of them, because they can imagine, okay, the SaaS cut off all this PHP part off, like you even don't have an option. But yes, I mean, but another part is really just in like the comfort zone, because yes, I mean, I'm coming to the office every day. I mean, not me, but let's imagine the backend PHP developer. He come in every day to the office and he know what he will do approximately, because his mindset, the technology, like his seniority allow him to understand everything in most cases, and he is quite confident what he will do today. And now he's coming and he need to build something with a builder which he don't know about, but that his tech stack, because Adobe told now it's your tech stack, and his seniority is going a little bit down because on the expertise he's not so like feel comfortable anymore. And that's what's have to be shifted, because in my opinion, while working with it, it's not so complicated.
Okay, thank you very much for your opinion. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Isn't there a plan to? I know AppBuilder basically is running on OpenWhisk, a technology which is more or less similar to container-based applications. So basically, we don't have to stick to a specific programming language. Aren't there any plans to also support PHP as a language similar to what we have in Lambda or other runtime as a service environments?
That's a very good question. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but when this Adobe Firefly appeared in 2020, I had a talk to Adobe guys on the same topic, and they told me they will add PHP support, and it was PHP and Python, I guess, to the builder. As it's never happened, and I never heard anything like, so there was one conversation when I heard it, yeah, we're now focusing on JavaScript because it's a new product, we want to like support one technology, but we will do it. I have a feeling it was more like because they know there is a possibility, so they told, yes, we can do it. But after 5 years, I never ever heard anything about this. I mean, honestly, never asked, but it's something we may ask, so I guess not. I mean, looking also how Adobe invests in all the starter kits, tooling around, I guess not. It's just to be careful. One example I have is that Adobe is strictly stuck to GitHub with everything they're doing. So they have CI/CDs for Mesh, which are GitHub based. They have EDS, which is pure GitHub based. And when we came and said, okay, we need a GitLab because our customer use it, they said, yeah, okay, we can do it, we can think about it. But also looking how it's developing, I understand that from architectural or solution consultant, I cannot advise still to do it, because for Adobe, it will be always priority number 2, where to selling something for big money to the customer, I cannot rely on, So yeah, so I guess PHP will not happen with a builder. I mean, that's just my inner feeling.
Okay, but maybe the good news is that we don't actually have to stick to AppBuilder, right? Because we could configure the events to in Adobe Commerce to also bubble the event to a different microservice hosted anywhere in any language. And we can also connect it, I watch your videos about it, with API mesh, and then use schema stitching or whatever to combine different sources. So you actually cannot see whether the microservice is running in Adobe App Builder or anywhere else.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, you can use Amazon. You can just drop off this whole builder. I mean, as I know, a builder become like a separate SKU when you selling the projects to your customer. So you can get it or not get it. Like if you want, I mean, you can pay for it and get it as a package. You can also do it without it, which also means you can compare prices and see, okay, I mean, looking on your use cases for sure, because like the great idea of a builder that it's basically about the whole this Adobe runtime environment, that you have access to APIs for the whole Adobe products ecosystem. You can have IM, Target, Marketo, whatever else is there, which makes all this integration much, much easier. But for sure, if you don't need them and you have pure, like you need just to have a customization for Adobe Commerce with the microservices, then you can just use Amazon and do it there. It really depends on your use cases.
Yeah, and talking about Adobe SKUs, I think there's also a SKU for EDS. And what we heard before, you can also replace it by a React headless application.
Yes.
And that actually makes, so this new product or Adobe Cloud, Adobe Commerce Cloud as a Service, ACCS, as it is called internally, is now we have the components actually available that makes Adobe Commerce really a composable e-commerce platform.
Yeah, and if you look on the optimizer, that's adding one more like cherry on the top of all of this, because I really like the idea that you maybe even don't need commerce there. I mean, if you let's not tell integrate Shopify with Adobe Commerce Optimizer, but also can be a case, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's so honestly, like really now, if you talk about composable commerce, that's something what Adobe is doing with all those services, which is quite given flexibility. I mean, I for sure understand struggle of the developers because I'm not developing anymore much. I'm more doing the solution consultant. And then I also developing like new stuff which coming in to give it a try, understand how it works, distribute the knowledge to a team, and then give it to them. So for sure, I'm in a bit good conditions here. But from the architectural point of view and consultant point of view, it's become like really easier to combine those stuff together and see what customer really need.
Wonderful. Any questions here from the audience? Not for now. I guess you showed us today how to fly to the moon or something. You're talking about a different new universe, which is really exciting to us and which will keep us busy, I think, for the next couple of years. So thank you again very much for trailblazing this new path for us.
Thanks for having me. I mean, that was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you all who joined us online at our Stammtisch. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for participating. Woo!